Hey, welcome back, everyone. Which is, well, one of the cases around the satanic panic, as they called it in the 90s, has been brought back out. And right now you have the sheriff now announcing a case where they are investigating, in fact, some of the allegations, again, from the 90s into child ritual, sex abuse, and cannibalism. And he's even called out one of the local officials there and the local official's wife. The local official is saying that this is basically politics. He's denying everything. But we're going to go into this, some of the background of these individuals, and also some of the cases in the 90s, because really the implications of this are pretty serious. If this can reopen the books on many of the investigations that did take place in the 90s, many of which were tossed out on terms that, funny enough, based on today's standards, would be taken a lot more seriously. Well, we'll see where it goes. I'm going to be going in depth in this tonight. We'll be doing quite a bit on that focused. Also, I'm going to go into probably on Epic TV evidence that people with COVID-19 vaccines are dying from high viral loads. And if you think that's conspiracy, that's actually from the NIH website. I'm going to be showing you the NIH website detailing this based on data from an autopsy. We'll go into it, folks. As always, if you're not on Epic TV yet, around 20-minute mark, we're going to jump exclusively to Epic TV. Get your free trial. It's in the description below the video. I'll give you 14 free days. Jump on, join us. Again, there's a lot of stuff we can't see on YouTube without getting banned or blocked or whatever else. So, all right, around 20 minutes, join us over there. Also, folks, big announcement. First of all, we're going to be releasing a special feature pretty soon. Maybe within the next week, hopefully, looking into January 6th. I will keep you updated on this. We're going to get the real story out is the idea. So stay tuned for that. Also, along with that, not this coming week, but next week, I'm going to be launching the show from my new studio, which we now have at the Epic Times office. That's going to be 3 days a week lives and 1 day a week interview. So we're going to be doing full time in the studio now. Unfortunately, or fortunately, this means we're going to also be moving to a daytime schedule because I'll be filming from the office when I'm there. That is going to be 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. Once we make the switch, I'm not going to be doing the PM Sunday show. I really apologize to those of you. I know I like it too, but again, it's going to be from the office, and it's a new studio, and that's going to be the schedule going forward. So join me again. Normal schedule this week. But next week, we're going to start doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday live show each morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. And then we'll also do a show on Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time as well. That'll be the interview. That'll be starting June 13th. So be sure to join us. And we'll be showing you the new studio. And we'll also hopefully have our feature out by then as well. First, hopefully of 2 parts. We'll look into it. But we want to get the real story out on all this. And folks, some good stuff in the works. This is a big shift for the show, one that's really taken us to the next level, and some good stuff happening along with it. All right, that said, let's jump into the first story for the night. I want to talk about a story I didn't think we'd be talking about on YouTube, especially, but satanic ritual abuse. Again, one of the more sensitive topics out there, but yeah, it needs to be talked about. Now, let me read you a story here. This is from Salon. We'll go over a bit of this. This is Salon reporting. Again, this is not like some right-wing website or conspiracy. Well, maybe it is conspiracy depending on how you view it. This is Salon, pretty far left website, but they're reporting on it, and they say this. They say Salon is saying Utah election is upended by allegations of ritualistic sex abuse and cannibalizing young children. This is Salon's website stating this. It says chaos erupted in an election in Utah County for a Utah County attorney after incumbent David Leavitt was forced to deny, they say, QAnon-style claims that he and his wife engaged in cannibalism and ritual sex abuse of children. Local news station KUTV reports that Leavitt held a press conference this week in which he lashed out at the Utah County Sheriff's Office for announcing an investigation into a, quote, child sex abuse ring that operated in Utah, Juab, and Sanpete counties between 1990 and 2010. Leavitt told reporters that he and his wife had both been investigated for being part of the alleged abuse ring, but had been cleared of any wrongdoing. He then accused Utah County Sheriff Mike Smith for making the announcement as a way to hurt him politically ahead of an upcoming election. Now, Leavitt is claiming that this case, the allegations were debunked 10 years ago, which would have been around 2010-ish, right? 2012. Allegations in a sex abuse case where a man who sexually abused his own daughter named Leavitt, his wife, and about 15 to 20 other individuals as part of that. Now, the sheriff seems to believe that this is real, and the sheriff is stating it as such. Leavitt is denying it. Now, the important part with this is it seems this is a new investigation. This is not him bringing up old news. This is the sheriff announcing a new investigation. And while it does not seem he directly accused Leavitt, he did kind of address Leavitt as part of this, mentioning that he is investigating it. And of course, Leavitt and his wife are both previously accused of this. So we will see what happens with this. Let me go a bit more into this, and I'll give you my take on this. Now, the county prosecutor, again, says it's politically motivated. We'll see what happens with that. And folks, this is going to be interesting. Now, this is KUTV News, one of the local news outlets. And let me just show you this. I'll play you a video. Start from about 50 seconds. It says Utah County Sheriff Attorney spar over investigation of ritual sex abuse. So I'll show you just a bit of this. Start at 50-second mark.
County resources.
To continue our coverage tonight, we bring you team coverage looking into exactly what all of this means for the county attorney, the Utah County Sheriff, as well as hearing from a victim of the sexual abuse directly.
Yeah, we want to begin with Jeremy Harris. He's live in Utah County. He's been following the story all day for us. Jeremy?
Yeah, Mark and Heidi, the dust is still settling from two really wild press conferences. On one side, you have a county prosecutor who says this is all a political conspiracy against him right before an election to bring up salacious allegations. On the other, a sheriff who says he has a legitimate investigation that the county attorney needs to stay out of.
We won't be intimidated by Mr. Leavitt.
I'm not trying to hide anything here. I'm holding a press conference for crying out loud and talking about this.
At the heart of the dispute between Sheriff Mike Smith and County Attorney David Leavitt is an investigation of child sex abuse.
I am not a suspect in a criminal investigation.
Several times David Leavitt named himself and mentioned cannibalism and murder. This investigation is about child sexual abuse.
This week, the sheriff's office announced it's looking into a ring of sex trafficking from 1990 to 2010.
Okay, I won't go over this whole thing. I'll show you a clip later on of some of the other allegations with this, but let's go into this a bit more. Now, this article says a bit further down something interesting. It says, Smith said the ritual sex abuse investigation involves more than just the case where Leavitt said he and his wife were accused. And this is a quote. This is Smith, the sheriff, saying this, the one who's making the accusations. Several times, Mr. Leavitt named himself and mentioned cannibalism and murder. This investigation is about child sex abuse. So the sheriff is clarifying that the case, the investigation, is about child sex abuse. But in regards to this, the sheriff is noting that it is Leavitt himself who is making this into a cannibalism and murder accusation. And Smith continues stating, I take exception to any victim coming forward and being categorized as tragically mentally ill, which was how Leavitt, again, accused the individual coming forward and making some of these accusations. And the sheriff said, how dare you? These are victims of crimes who have mustered the courage to come forward, and this is what you call them, mentally ill? How dare you? Smith denied accusations, the sheriff denied accusations by Leavitt, who's the incumbent, right? That a Utah County Sheriff Office sergeant had confirmed to an individual, Zeus Z24, a website that claims to be an online news site, that Leavitt and his wife were being investigated in the sex abuse ring. And so this is an important technicality. Basically, Leavitt seems to be believing that he is the subject of this investigation. He's making a lot of noise about it. He even held a press conference specifically on it. But he seems to believe that the sheriff is accusing him directly, and he's defending himself as if he's being accused directly. The sheriff is clarifying that he has not directly named Leavitt as a subject of this, But of course, based on the back and forth, it is bringing it to this level. And again, the sheriff is mentioning that he's not the one saying cannibalism and murder. That's Leavitt saying that in terms of the accusations. Now, let's go a bit into this. Now, again, we'll see what happens with this. But on an interesting note, Utah County Attorney David Leavitt, again, the incumbent, he's running for re-election, the one being accused or accusing himself in a way. He also is the guy who disbanded the county's special victims unit for prosecuting sex crimes, which may be, again, an indicator of maybe why this conflict is happening, or maybe he, for some reason, wanted to get rid of that. It does seem to be the case that this is a previous point of contention between Leavitt and the sheriff, though. The sheriff may believe that maybe Leavitt did it for a reason, that he disbanded the special victims unit that would actually investigate crimes of this nature, crimes which he was previously accused of being involved in previously. But regardless, they do seem to have a conflict over this. Now, before we go further, folks, we do have a sponsor tonight. Our episode is brought to you by Secure. Over 155 million Americans were affected by data leaks in 2020. The average American had their personal data stolen about 4 times over the past year. People get anxious because they can't protect their online data and activity, but now there's a new email and messenger app called Secure. That's Secur. That can give privacy and security for sending emails and messages. Secure's server and data center are hosted in Switzerland. That's important because Switzerland has the strictest data privacy laws in the world. Secure does not rely on big tech companies like Amazon, Google, or Microsoft, which also means it's not subject to the Intrusive Cloud Act. Secure does not ask for your phone number, it does not mine your data, and does not upload your contacts. It functions by adding people you know, and then adding their secure numbers, and you can still chat with non-secure users by sending them an invite. Now, Secure protects you from hackers getting onto your phone, and you have full privacy while on the app. It's $5 for the messenger, or $10 for the email and messenger package. You can visit secure.com today for a free 7-day trial, where you can use the promo code Joshua to get 25% off. And big thanks out to Secure for sponsoring tonight's episode. Let me continue on this. Now, again, we're talking about the sheriff who's saying he's opened this investigation into what was at the time considered a ritual sex abuse ring, apparently. Which is, I'm going to go deeper into my overall take on some of this, because there were many accusations like this in the 80s and 90s, many cases like this. And so it's significant if they're reopening the book, so to speak, on one of these investigations. Now, previously, one of the accused individuals with this was Leavitt. And Leavitt, the Utah County attorney, he was the one who actually disbanded the unit within the government that would investigate crimes of this nature, in particular child sex abuse. Let me show you an article from 2020 on this. This is Desert News reporting. It says, top Utah County cop at odds with dismantling of special victims unit. And so, depending on how you want to interpret it, this is a previous conflict between Leavitt and Smith, again, the Utah County attorney and the sheriff, who are now at odds as well. It says here, the Utah County Attorney's Office has dissolved its special victims unit focused on prosecuting sex crimes and domestic violence, a move that critics say is harmful to victims and threatens community safety. Now, further into this, now keep in mind as well, the Utah County attorney who did this, who disbanded it, is the one who's previously accused for crimes of this nature. Now, it says further in, Utah County Sheriff Mike Smith, he said this: these are our most vulnerable in our society when we're talking sex abuse against children and women. It says further in, Utah County Attorney David Leavitt made the change last year, that would be 2019, scattering the group's attorneys across other teams under the idea that they could train their colleagues in prosecuting the complex cases. He said the special group isn't needed and takes resources away from other issues. Now, nationally, it says special victims units are commonplace, raising some questions on why Leavitt decided to disband it. And it says that they're established under the thinking that victims should work with a single team of specially trained lawyers and advocates throughout the court process. The attorneys typically are trained in how to avoid re-traumatizing their clients, understanding the forensic evidence, and explaining the complicated legal process to victims. In Utah County, opponents of the change say it means many who survived brutal crimes often now have their cases handled by a novice prosecutor, while expert special victims attorneys are too busy to dedicate the time and attention that they once did. Now, further in, it says this, that the attorney who worked in the office for 6 years asked that her name be withheld at the request of her current employer. She said this is one of the attorneys who was with this agency that was disbanded, did not give her name, but she said in the wake of the change, again, Leavitt getting rid of the office that would the office that would investigate the same kind of crimes that he's being accused in, that in the wake of this change, she says, this unnamed individual, an unseasoned attorney, agreed to drop charges in a child rape case after a sexual assault examination came back normal. And the man's defense attorney said the child's hymen was intact. The woman is saying, the former prosecutor is saying, any experienced SVU prosecutor will tell you that a broken hymen is a myth and is 100% never a reason to dismiss a rape of a child case. Now, again, interpret that either way. Either that this is evidence of a previous conflict between Leavitt and Smith, the attorney, county attorney, and the sheriff, or whether it is, again, the sheriff believing that Leavitt may have had a reason possibly of disbanding this. Now, again, it does not seem the sheriff is directly accusing Leavitt, but Leavitt seems to believe that, well, the sheriff reopening this investigation somehow implicates him, and he's really on the defense over this. Now, the important thing is that Leavitt is not the only one being investigated with this, or not the only one who is previously accused of this. Leavitt's wife is also being accused. Her name is Chelom Leavitt. Moloch spelled backwards, ironically. His wife is Chelom Leavitt. Now, first, though, before I go into her, let me talk about some of her background and what they have on the side. Now, this is where it gets interesting. I did some research looking into this case, trying to figure out who these individuals were, what they do. And it's interesting that Leavitt actually has an organization called the Leavitt Institute that he and his wife are both involved in. And let me show you the website and a bit on this. Then I'll show you some information on his wife. It says here on their own website, the Leavitt Institute for International Development is dedicated to spreading democracy, ethics, and the rule of law in developing nations. The Leavitt Institute for International Development, that's him and his wife there, is dedicated to spreading democracy, ethics, and the rule of law in developing nations. As part of its efforts, TLI involves some of the brightest international relations specialists and legal minds throughout the world to teach democratic principles, rule of law, and ethics. TLI teachers are experienced judges, prosecutors, criminal defense attorneys, and legal counselors from the United States and Canada. In other words, individuals who are within his own network through this organization running under his name. They lecture on a variety of subjects and make a lasting impression on the minds of their students. Now, let me show you some information on his wife. Now, this is the Leavitt Institute page on Chelom Leavitt. Again, the attorney's wife, the one who seems to be implicating himself in terms of saying he's being accused. I won't read this whole thing, but there's an interesting part I found in this, something very interesting, in fact. It says, in 2004, Chelom and David took their family to Ukraine to help the ABA with the CEEI-LI program. Their relationships and experiences in Ukraine prompted the creation of TLI in 2005. Chelom began the duties of president of TLI in 2006, but it says this. In 2010 to 2011, she was invited to be a Ukrainian Fulbright Fellow and taught as a Fulbright visiting professor in the psychology department at Shevchenko National University in Kiev, Ukraine. Now, it's interesting in this regard, first of all, that Nina Jankowicz, the former head of the new Disinformation Governance Board, the one who stepped down, right, the Ministry of Truth, was also a Fulbright Fellow in Ukraine. So this woman, Chelom, shares that same connection as her. And there's also a weird connection with Hillary Clinton, which I'm going to go into. Now, first, though, before we go into that, I need to jump over to Epic TV because we're going to go into some sensitive stuff and YouTube might ban us. But folks, before we jump over, we did an interview. I want to show you a trailer for David Horowitz talking about the organization that Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, or Mark Zuckerberg, financed that he says fixed the 2020 election. Pretty serious information. I wouldn't say accusations because it's accurate. He's going over data on what Mark Zuckerberg actually did in the 2020 elections, and he's suggesting that the actions Mark Zuckerberg took were enough to, in fact, change the outcome of the election to a pretty strong degree. Let me show you that trailer now. We'll jump over to Epic TV for the rest of this. What did Mark Zuckerberg do that might have violated IRS laws when it comes to nonprofits?
He rigged the election for Joe Biden. Doesn't get more political than that. Took $400 million tax-exempt dollars, which means that taxpayers were unwittingly and maybe unwillingly part of this scam. $400 million is what the DNC spends. And he targeted Democrat areas. He did it under a deceptive rubric. That is, he claimed that this was to make the elections safe during the pandemic. It had nothing to do with the COVID epidemic, although that was the cover of this operation. And that's significant when people hide their real agendas.
All right, folks, that said, come join us on Epic TV. I'm going to go into the Hillary Clinton connection under the Obama administration, and also the connection with Nina Jankowicz, the former head of the Disinformation Governance Board. Join us on Epic TV. A lot we can't talk about on YouTube. We're giving you a free trial. Go in the description, grab it, jump over, and come join us. We have another hour for the show, so come on over. We'll see you there. All right, folks, thank you for being here. I want to go over this a bit more. We'll do questions at the end of the episode, so if you have questions, leave them. We're, again, about an hour in. We'll go